Everyone, welcome back to the stage, and we are ready to head into another amazing session. We've talked a lot about quality, collaboration, and efficiency, and this is a session that brings all of that together in a way that makes a real difference for people who are using the software that we develop every day. Our next speaker, Ludovico, is here to show us how shifting left can also mean shifting towards inclusion, building accessibility into your testing strategy from the very start. So please join me in giving a big round of applause to welcome Ludovico to the stage.
Hello. Hi, Jenna.
Hello.
Thank you for the great introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and jump off stage, let you take it away and share your screen.
Yep. So tell me, folks, if my screen is visible, please. It's now okay. Okay, thank you. So everyone, thank you for having me today. So here we are for talking about shift left for inclusion and some strategies that will be including tests for accessibility points in both web and all the mobile world. Today I'm here because this is a topic that I really care about. It is something that I've spoken already a lot about this topic because it seems that now, thanks to some of the new rules that are being introduced, it seems that is now being hype. So it's now everybody is now happy to talk about accessibility. So thank you for being here for this important topic. But before starting, a little introduction for me. Who I am? I'm Ludovico. Nice to meet you. Who doesn't know me? I'm an Italian guy from Milan, and I'm currently working as a senior test engineer at Nearform. SheTech ambassador, both Grafana and Browser Stack champions. I've co-founded different startups in the tech field, and I like to contribute in the open source world, mainly for education. Some passions like video games, animals, and cars. But we are not here for talking about me, so let's start with this talk. So we are living in a world that, let's say, full of people, full of diverse people, full of diversity, and we know that everyone is not the same, and everyone needs different things, also in web. So when we think about people in the web, we can say that thanks to the Microsoft Toolkit image, we can say that we have different personas. These personas can be have disabilities in two main types. One is permanent, and the other one is temporary. If you think about a permanent disability, you can think about a blind person, or maybe a person that does not have an arm, or etc. If you think about a person that is temporarily disabled, maybe it's because he's holding a baby, or in that moment he breaks his arm and he can't use both the hands. So since because we know that we are different, we can be in different situations, we know that also there can be different devices in the world. So we need to take in mind that not only the differences between people in disabilities and also in the way that they use the technology affects how they use it, but also the type of devices that they can use. So it's important to understand what is accessibility, because everyone has tried to define this, but in my opinion, accessibility is something that assures that every technology in every product, device, and services that a person can use, so not only something that you can have, but also something that you can use, maybe in a train station or in a bank, can be used for all people that having all abilities. So all the ones that also include the disability, the disabilities. The goal here is to remove the barrier that can prevent a user or a person to use the services. So it's important to ensure that everyone can access the technology. This is very important. So why this matter? Because in the world, this is not something that Ludovico said, but it's something that we have seen in the data, thanks to the data. 1 in 6 people worldwide live with a disability. And since because I'm Italian, I've also included an Italian data. So in Italy, just in Italy, over 3 million users face digital accessibility challenges. And this also is important because, let's say, 13 trillion in global purchasing power comes from the disabled community people. So now that I've given you an introduction of what the accessibility word is and why it's important, let's think how we can do this. Starting from the single line of code that you can write in your software, wherever it is, you can choose between building a bridge or building a let's say a wall. This is very a simple example that I can take. But if you think of this example, you can notice that everyone in the software can choose about these two. And this is very important because if you look at the data, we can check that 96%, okay, 96% of the web has barriers, not bridges, walls. So you got it right, 96%. 96%. It's a very big data. It's not something that we can ignore. And this comes from WebAIM report that tell us that all of these home pages that were scanned automatically contains accessibility issues. So only the 3% almost meets the let's say the minimum WCAG AA criteria standards. Okay. And we are sad about this because I mean, if let's say almost the web is not accessible, everyone can be sad about it. Me also. So a question for you in the chat is, do you include accessibility testing in your QA processes? You can write both yes or no. I will take a look on the chat. But personally, I will say that when I was starting my career in testing, I didn't include it. Is it something that personally, or I didn't do because I wasn't skilled in this, or is it something that at the end of the process someone will raise, and then we collected all the accessibility feedbacks, issues, and we start fixed it. So the reality, yeah, I've seen many no's, so and also some yes, fortunately. But the reality is that many teams struggling when it's time to do accessibility testing because it's already too late. Maybe you have done too many features. The product is difficult to implement, and you have maybe struggled to implement it. So every time it's always too late. And when you start doing your accessibility test, you start collecting too many issues. Also, it's not something that everybody loves it. Instead, many people in the teams hate it because actually during this accessibility testing period, people start thinking that okay, this will be a period with extra work. I need to finish my job late because I need to fix all these bugs. So it's not something that people really loves it. And which are the main challenges on this? Again, something that I've also had in my past is the lack of knowledge on this topic, because it seems simple, because many people talks about accessibility and say always the same stuff, because the problems are the alt attributes in HTML, the colors, but it's really big topic and they deserve the time to be studied. So it's not easy to learn accessibility. And so teams are struggling because they didn't have time to study this. As I said earlier, people think that this slow down development. So instead of thinking that this can help also later, earning more money from also disability people, doing something that ethically is good, because it's like when you open a store and you give the people the possibility to reach the store also with a disability. So again, it's something that most of the organization doesn't give an importance to, and often the priority is really low. And again, there is no clear ownership in the teams, because sometimes there is only one person or maybe two that take this topic in mind, raise it, and then they are alone during the entire process. So all these problems that I've said now brings to accessibility debt. What is accessibility debt? Accessibility debt is the fact that teams start accumulating accessibility issues over time. And this can bring regression problems, higher cost to fix, legal risk, and also loss of users, because again, we are not including the user that has disabilities. And if we have let's say a not public sector product, okay, they can change it. But if it's a public sector product, they can also raise something, and we will get some legal problems. So this also is an image, a simple image that I think many of you have seen in your life in software development. This represents the impact in terms of cost that an issue, general issue, in this case we are talking about accessibility, because it's essentially the same. So if you have an issue in your project, a bug, is essentially the same if you have an accessibility bug, because if you fix it later in production, the cost will be higher. And sometimes, let's say not sometimes, but always, when people started remembering that you need to actually do accessibility testing, issues are like more than 100 to fix. So keep in mind that the cost can be really high. Okay, apart of cost, something that I want to say to you is that there can be also toxic dynamics in your team, because I've seen in many years of consultancy, but also startup, also banking services, different sectors, that when it comes up to do accessibility testing, it seems that no one wants to take the ownership of this and the responsibility, because sometimes people when see the accessibility start saying, oh no, it's the fault of the designer because they didn't design unaccessible interfaces. Developers start saying that the accessibility was not inserted in the tickets, and the tester is like put in the middle between these people that start blaming. And sometimes, let's say, they didn't have the tools to fix the problems. So this is important to keep in mind, because it's not only a cost or let's say tool problem. It's also something that can affect the life of the team, and then life of the team can become essentially someone that say, okay, now it's the time to change my company. Okay. So another question is, what if I wanted to ignore accessibility? essentially, as I said before, you can income to legal risk and penalties. So it's important to remember that if you don't do things good, you need to pay, actually. Yeah, I've inserted some examples like the Domino's Pizza case in US, and also as well a damaged reputation, because if you are a big company that maybe is producing a service that is used by hundreds of thousands of people, and then you are not giving them the accessibility minimum standards, is something that really damages the reputation of your company. And as well, because in June of this year, the European Accessibility Act is introduced, now we have another law that tells you that if you don't do this, essentially you need to pay. Okay, and this is, let's say, have two phases. The good phase is that now people will start caring more, and that's why accessibility is now hyping in the world. The bad phases is that most of the people ask me, or in general search, how to not pay the let's say the penalties, instead of thinking that they are doing something not ethical, right? So people focuses more on the fact that they don't want to spend money, and so they ask what is the minimum set of things that they need to do for not paying, right? And in my opinion, is not something good. So in general, think before you take any action, because can be something that can give you many problems. Okay. So how we can solve this? Essentially, let's think a bit, and the solutions are these ones. So the first thing, as you have heard before, is design. If you think about accessibility, like 60% of the issues that you can find can be fixed in design. So that's why it's important to not only check that your designer has the sets of skills to say that his design is accessible, but also because, again, you can have the best accessibility testing tool, you can be a developer that is really skilled in accessibility, but this is really important to know and to check, because essentially you can prevent issues. The second thing, okay, is that you need to keep in mind the WCAG principles. So when you check the design, you can check as a tester or a developer, if you have the skills, if your designer has thinked this, and if not, you can raise them. So check that your design is accessible from the start, rather than maybe after, during the development, start finding some accessibility issues that are not fixable by the developers, right? But needs to be again bring it again in the earlier phases of development, and needs to be fixed by the designer. So remember it, because it's important. Another thing is that these are, in my opinion, I've collected them, the most common accessibility is something that you need to take in mind. And the two big parts are shift left and Cypress, and that's why we are here today. So what is shift left? This is another buzzword that a lot of people start thinking about, talking about. And thanks to Deck for this image, we can just summarize shift left to add the testing in the earlier phases of development. So rather than doing tests that can be also writing the test data, check that all the parts of your software has got the right happy paths and unhappy paths. So essentially, instead of doing everything at the end, we bring testing in every phase of development. And in practice, this is something that I've thinked. Talking about accessibility, we can, as I said earlier, check if the designer has worked using the 4 principles of WCAG, and check also these kinds of stuff. In the development, check that all the semantic HTML is used. or adding some plugins for checking at the unit level or lint level if developers added the basic minimum WCAG code. And then for test, we can use Cypress, and we will see in a bit. Remember that if you automate your test, you are not, let's say, secure that your app is accessible. So remember that also if you build a perfect test automation accessibility tool, you need to do also manual test. Better if you have someone that has accessibility issues. So automation early testing. The problems here are always the same because we can have flaky test, limited coverage, and also some performance trade-off if we add accessibility testing in our pipeline. And why Cypress? Essentially because I think I've tried many tools in my experience, and I came across a new tool that Cypress has added. And I have to say that was very, very nice. So that's why we are here today, and we will see how you can implement accessibility test using Cypress. So essentially, you can have two ways to do this. We will call this approach A and approach B. The approach A is essentially to use Cypress plus Cypress Axe. And the approach B is to use the Cypress Accessibility Cloud solution. So the Cypress Axe solution, so the approach A, essentially combines these two key commands that are inject Axe and check Ali. And after trying out them, you can see that this is a standard accessibility test using this solution. As you can see, it's not really difficult to do them, but requires developing skills, a part of the accessibility ones. And again, it's not something easy. These are some of the results that I've got after playing with this tool and implementing a custom solution by myself that actually gives you also the screenshot with the component that has got some accessibility issues. A good report, but a report that you can see only in your console. And again, maybe some guidelines to follow if you find an accessibility issue that points you to the Axe documentation. But this took me a lot of time and a lot of code. As you can see here, this is just the custom command to format the accessibility issues log. You can find it in my GitHub. I've done many examples. This is the public one, obviously, but it's not something easy to do it. So the pros to using this solution is that you can have a full control when this is used. It's open source, free, and quick to set up. Just set up. And if you are a small project and maybe with a small amount of budget, it's nice to start. The cons are that it's slowing down your pipelines. You can have, let's say, a limited coverage, and does not have dashboards. With the other approach, with the premium one, so the approach B, the Cypress Accessibility Cloud, the really good stuff is that you don't have a setup. So you don't need to set up anything to start. And as you can see, it scans the DOM snapshot after the code is run. So you don't have any performance issues. These are some examples. And as you can see, thanks to the beautiful UI that Cypress has, instead of relying just on the console or the pipeline or the logs, you have an UI that can shows you which are the accessibility issues. You can also inspect them in detail. And a part of inspecting them and also seeing them in image, so visually, you can check also in this tool the Access Core guideline for each of them. And a part of Access Core guidelines, Cypress has implemented some custom rules, so made by Cypress, that helps you to debug more your issues. Another thing that they have implemented is called branch review or results API. So these two features are really good because one allows you essentially, I will show you, to compare different branches. So you can actually check if one of your branch related to compared to another has got or has introduced new accessibility issues. And the result API allows you to create custom rules in your pipeline to essentially build your quality gate. And this allows you to put inside your repository extra gates with custom rules that, as I've said, to check if your code actually is meeting the accessibility issues. So the pros and cons for this approach are that for sure you will not need a setup and it will do a full automation. Can capture every state of your application, and it will give you a visual dashboard and some trends that can really help not your team but also stakeholders to check if your accessibility issues are being triaged, resolved during time. So it's really good in my opinion. The only cons that I found is that for sure it's a cloud solution, it costs, and so sometimes it's not the best solution if you don't have enough budget for it. So in general, it's something that I, let's say, put it in a table like this just for showing you what I think in practical. It's better for large teams because I know that sometimes, most of the times, small teams doesn't have the budget not only for the accessibility testing, but in general for all the testing stuff. So these are my considerations. Some resources in really quick. So if you doesn't know anything about accessibility and you need to start, Microsoft has done this really great course about accessibility, and in my opinion, it's a great point of start for who doesn't know what is accessibility. Again, you can find more information about accessibility in their documentation. So they have created a really helpful documentation in their website that you can check. As well, you can check accessibility website in Mozilla one that is really great because gives you also a point of view from a developer perspective. And last but not least, for all the testers here, I really recommend to give it a read of this book because covers essentially all the accessibility testing that can you have encounter during your development. So really will be fast. 3 takeaways. Start early because if you start early, you will reduce your accessibility depth. Use an hybrid approach. So give it a try also to the Cypress tool because you can build your local development, adding your accessibility test, but for sure you will struggle if your team doesn't have the right skills. And don't forget about manual test. And also we can say that the inclusivity in general, so adding the accessibility test, thinking about accessibility in all the phases of the development drives the product success. So don't forget about it. So now, because the automation removed all the friction that you can have doing the accessibility testing, was stopping us from building a more accessible web. And like the W3C way said, accessibility is essential for some, but useful for all. Thank you.